Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Curious Realms continuing coverage of the Lonestar Paracon right here in Schertz, Texas. We are very, very pleased to be joined back once again at a Lonestar Paracon by our good friend, Greg Lawson. Welcome back to the show,
up, man. It's good to be here. Thanks.
You are recently retired from the Travis County Sheriff's Department.
Right.
Congratulations on that.
Thanks.
Congratulations on your many, many years of service. Law enforcement has a near and dear place in my heart when it comes to paranormal experience, when it comes to paranormal investigation, because only here recently has it become the fact that somebody with a badge on their chest might even be able to tell their chief that, like, hey, something happened while I was out there. Like, as much as people in the UFO, UAP community have been upset with Arrow, the all-domain anomaly reconnaissance office, things like that. The one thing I have said again and again on this show is thank God it was made, because now there is at least a unified form of reporting within the federal government, and B, the fact that you can report within the federal government without fear of reprisal, of losing a 20-year career in the sky, them taking your pilot's license from you, things like that, or even taking a 20-year military career.
Yeah.
So the fact that that is now being brought to the world of law enforcement as well. We're very good friends with UAPPD out of Arizona, and that's a big part of their thing is first responders. How did you deal with that with so many years on the force, Greg?
Well, first I didn't care.
Okay. No.
There was a part of it is like, your badge, your logo or your sigil or whatever it is, it says honor, courage, honesty, all this stuff, all these great things. But when I tell you the truth, you don't like that. So there's a real problem in law enforcement as far as that goes. There has been a real problem in, commercial pilots and all that stuff. So, I tell people, even in law enforcement, because where I ended up working in law enforcement, I was a director of training for the academy. So I was overseeing all curriculum, all the training, all the instructors, all, everything, all the certifications. And there's a huge liability on that when you're doing
massive liability. Greg.
And so I would have people come up and knock on my door, and sometimes I know these people, sometimes I don't. We had a very large agency, and they would come in and go, "Hey, Lieutenant, can I talk to you for a minute?" And I'm like, "Sure, what's going on?" And then, mind if I close the door? And I'm like, okay. Here we go. They close the door. It's either going to be about an internal affairs investigation they don't know, how to handle or what's going on, or it's going to be they saw me a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And so we would sit there and I would hear these stories. Now, I did my undergrad in psychology until the end, and I realized I really don't want to hear your problems. So I didn't think I was going to be a good psychologist.
I'm with you.
I'm like, okay, take a shower, get up, eat a breakfast, go back to work, man. There's nothing you can do about it. Don't hang on to this. Do your best. Push through. And so I'm going to find out a lot of these things that a lot of cops experience could be a manifestation of post-traumatic stress.
Sure.
It could be all that,
sure.
Right? I had one guy, and he doesn't mind me talking about this. He wouldn't want me to give his name. But he came in and talked to me at length. He's an old SWAT guy, an old homicide detective. And when he goes to bed at night, he started noticing this, and he would tell his wife, and it freaked his wife out really bad, but there was a little girl that stood in the corner of the room. When you turn the light off, she's there. Turn the light back on, she's not there. He's like, oh my God, so he tells his wife's freaking out. It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So he kind of tried to work through this with his family, and they were not supportive at all. They were like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
And so he came and talked to me about it. And if he went to a psychologist, we could go through his background and say, okay, these are the things that have led you to have these experiences, because they would assign it back to PTSD.
Your divergent memory going on, things
Absolutely.
like that.
And so, when we talked about it, I often just fall back on Eastern psychology, because I have a real problem with a lot of the Western psychology and the medications and
totally,
everything.
totally.
Eastern psychology is, you tell your story maybe once. You don't do it every week with your psychologist for 2 years, and they put you on anxiety medication. They don't do that. And so in Eastern psychology, you tell your story maybe once, and whoever's talking with you will explore that. But ultimately, they will say, okay, I'm sorry that happened to you. This is who you are now.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with it?
What's your next step?
Right.
Yeah, let's process that, because we can't do anything. We can't unring the bell.
No.
You can't unring the bell.
No.
But you can worry about the repercussions of that bell and what moves forward. And where do you move from here with this new understanding?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How are you going to help your family? How are you going to help your coworkers? How are you going to, it seems to me that, well, I know this is true. When people sit and ruminate about their problems, it just doesn't get better.
No, it doesn't.
Even if doing something about it, you can possibly do something about it, take some steps or something. But one of the things is just dropping everything at the couch, getting up and going to exercise, walk in the park, or volunteer to go help somebody else.
That's right. Crisp high five. Right. Absolutely. Get out of yourself and go help somebody else. You'd be surprised how much it helps you.
It really does, man.
Yeah.
And so, with a lot of the stresses that like law enforcement and especially military go through, and then they have these experiences, it almost complicates the issue. Because like let's say you're a normal person, you don't go to family disturbances every day, you don't see dead babies, you don't have these horrible things. You're just a normal person, and you have a Bigfoot experience, a shadow person experience, a UFO experience. It's a much cleaner investigation.
Yep.
But when you have this other baggage that comes along with it, then you have to cull out.
Absolutely.
Is this a psychology kind of thing, or is this an experiential thing?
Well, and that brings up something that we bring up regularly whenever we talk about law enforcement, especially law enforcement in relation to this field, and that's the fact of if you are a party whatsoever at any point in your career to hand on a pistol removal from a holster, you are going to go see a therapist.
Yeah.
You will go see a therapist.
Yep.
Not if you had an experience on the job.
No.
Not if you had an experience. Not if you walked in and it was like, whoa, what these crazy people called about. And 911 was like, listen, man, like, they are utterly hysterical. Can you just make a well check and stop by? And then you've had an experience. There's nothing for you.
No.
There's nothing.
Not at all.
And that's kind of frightening, Greg.
So I worked 32 years at the sheriff's office, and in 32 years I had 14 people that I worked directly with, just like you and I are working right now, that committed suicide.
Yep. It is amongst our servicemen and law enforcement, it is a rampant issue.
And when you look at the fact that administrators say, oh, we have a psychologist, we have counselors, we have, all these things. You just, if something happens, come to that. Everybody knows if you do that, you're going to have problems with your administration. They're going to the psychologist. And that is, it's such a hypocritical way of doing things, because the administrators are typically administrators not because they want to be leaders of men and women. They don't want to work the street.
Yeah.
They don't want to go to the family disturbances and do the real job.
That's right.
So they promote to get out of that, and then they sit up there and judge everybody else. And it's a very dysfunctional
I can
thing.
see how that could be a bit of a broken system in and of itself.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, you're caring for broken people.
Yep.
Even within the shield, you're caring for broken people. And I think a lot of people forget about that whenever an officer of the law either pulls them over, comes to their house, what have you, is the fact of, like, there is a person behind that.
Yeah.
And their concerns come from the exact same place that any person in this room come from, Right. And when it comes to the paranormal especially, how you deal with that is a different world. And it's always fascinated me, because I've known quite a few law enforcement people in my life, and the way that they are able to compartmentalize. It reminds me a lot of my training in the seminary and the compartmentalization that I learned of hate the sin, love the sinner.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
No. Like I still have to be there for that person when they come to me. And even though I know they're probably not going to listen to my advice, I still have to be there for them on Sunday, pastorally.
Yes.
You know, and that can be hard. It can be hard when you make the same well visit to a house 3 times a month for 3-4 months, you know. But sure. Man, it definitely leads you to a different perspective of looking at the world, Greg.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that there is a really, really unique, if we were able to peel back some of the veneer coating those badges, I think we would really, really hit a beautiful human point of understanding of a lot of these things and the psychology of a lot of it.
Yeah, that's the real unfortunate part is that if officers bring forward problems, they get pulled off duty, they get their gun taken from them, they put them on light duty, then they run them through these batteries of tests. It is not at all for the benefit of the employee, it's for the protection of the
department.
Agency. Yeah,
absolutely. And
all of them will, oh no, that's not what we do. We're a big family. You are not a big family.
Yeah, no, all. You're circling wagons.
That's
is
exactly
what you're doing. You're circling wagons
every time.
And this is nothing at all to say anything bad about police, because once again, I firmly support every officer. I thank you for your service. For me, it's a point of concern within our society. Yes. I think that there is a large, and the suicides point that out. We have woefully forgotten and woefully not been able to help for all too long. And how do we do that, you know? And even looking at things in the world in the light of paranormal investigation, Greg, how was your work outside of the academy received by your constituents that you worked with?
So
I have to ask.
Right. I what you said as far as compartmentalizing, I'm a master at that.
You have to become one. You really do.
And so I make sure that there's a really deep, straight line drawn in the sand on my paranormal research and my criminal research.
Yeah.
And so as this kind of moved along in the last 15, 20 years, it was kind of like goofy. It's like, oh, so you're doing what? Okay, are you seeing ghosts? Are you possessed by demons?
Yeah.
It's like none of that. But it's almost like kind of fun. Everybody's like, I can't believe he's doing this. Have you talked to Lawson about X, Y, and Z or whatever? You need to go talk to Lawson. He's a ghost hunter. I'm like, I'm not a ghost hunter. I'm a paranormal investigator, and I investigate these experiences that people report to have. I have no idea. I have not,
Yeah.
I've seen some great evidence that I can't unexplain. I'm just like, what in the hell is that? But it's always cool when you have an accredited person come to you, whether it's a priest, whether it's a cop, or Richard Estep as far as EMS, registered nurses, hospice nurses. Man, the stories that they have.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's just amazing.
It really is.
So for me, the big problem with doing paranormal stuff and cop work is getting pulled before the grand jury or be pulled into a big case as a expert witness or a witness or an officer testifying for his report, and having that defense attorney go, so Lieutenant Lawson brought you in here for this murder case, and you're experienced in this and this, and your accreditations. Here's all your accreditations here, but you know what? Sidebar here. I want to talk to you a little bit about. So you're a ghost hunter?
Yeah. So about this Mothman.
Yeah. And they just try to destroy your credibility.
Oh, absolutely. Like a rapier.
Yes.
In a heartbeat.
And so my whole career, and I was successful at it, keeping that out.
Yeah.
So I was able to completely segregate. These two disciplines.
And for me, I think it goes a step further, though, because you brought up a big word that I use on my show all the time, and that's evidence.
Yeah.
Evidence. I'm a big protector of that word. And the phrase I normally use on my show, an exact and exact verbiage is evidence is what should clear you from prison, and never let it be less than that.
Right.
Ever. Never let what you call from any investigation be something that you would not be able to provide your lawyer and be like, this will keep me clear.
Yes.
Even the stuff you find on a paranormal investigation. Like
Yes.
everything else is data.
Yes.
And feel free to coldly call it data until it hits the point that it becomes evidence, that it's been checked, double-checked, somebody else not even involved checked it. Now we've got evidence.
Yeah.
Let's move forward. But if you immediately jump to the point of evidence, by the time you're done with an evening of investigation, you may be jumping the pony a little bit when it comes to, is what you gathered tonight evidence,
Right.
or is it data?
Right. So I say exactly what you say, just in a different way because of my application.
Yeah.
Is I'm not going to take anything from a paranormal investigation that I would not then submit to the grand jury for evaluation.
Exactly.
I'm like, okay, well, like, this is cool. This doesn't have anything to do with anything. This is data.
Yeah.
Right?
Is it going to clear or muddy the water?
This is interesting, but no, boom. And you know what people don't want to see? People don't want to see the 1994 Roswell report put out by the Air Force that's 1,000 freaking pages long. You idiots. You know, you've copied a whole bunch of stuff. You've redacted a whole bunch of stuff, put a bunch of gibberish in there, and about 20 pages is worth your time.
Yeah.
Out of 1,000.
Yep. On purpose.
On purpose. Just a complete smoke
Total
screen.
obfuscation.
Oh. It's just crazy. And, you know, it's like, as an example of the Roswell thing, it's like, okay, what they did in Roswell in 94 and after that when they went, oh, wow, we screwed that up, let's add some more stuff to it, it's like a cop going to a family disturbance and getting the man going, hey, so there's a family disturbance here. Could you investigate this for me and get back with me and tell me what happened?
Yeah, I got to go grab a burger. Take down what you can. I'll be back in 15.
So they tell the Air Force to investigate itself, and they who are you gonna hire? And you're the general. You have 50 investigators, and some obscure senator says, "Hey, I want to know more about this UFO." And 70 years ago, are you going to assign your best guy to that?
Yeah, I assure you, we have top men on it.
Yeah, we got real counterintelligence stuff going on in the world, and real espionage. And I'm going to pull. I'm sorry, I'm not pulling my best guy. I'm pulling Larry.
Yeah. No, precisely.
Brother-in-law's Larry over here and go,
the
hey,
cook
man.
has some additional time.
And so that's what I think happened. And I love the two guys that were assigned to do it. They had a hell of a mission to do it, but they didn't do it well. And then they tried to, kind of fix it a little bit, and they still didn't do that well. And, of course, they would be very critical on what I'm saying.
Sure.
But industry standards and best practices, they did none of it.
Yeah.
None.
And that brings up a topic that, once again, we talk about a lot on this show, because a lot of this show, Greg, is demystifying these topics for the average person, whether it be investigation and investigation tactics, methods, technologies, and experiences, because, once again, I'll never doubt anybody's experience. It's no different than you rolling up with rollers on at somebody's house. You're going to take every single report prima facie, exactly as they tell you, until investigated and other facts pop up.
Yep.
And if you don't, then you may be looking at things through a different lens, and maybe an investigative one that might be a little bit clouded or smudged in that kind of way.
And that's an unfortunate thing with a lot of law enforcement people. At year 5 to 7, something like that, you kind of take a dip in your career because you've done all this stuff, you've seen all this stuff, and it's like, all right, well, where am I going with this?
It's hard not to get jaded fast with something that's a fast pace, like rolling in a car, man.
Yeah. And if at that point they decide to test for detective and get promoted to detective, well, then you have these detectives that step in a crime scene and go, oh, I know exactly what happened here. That dude did this. And then they start working their case and their report to prove this guy did this instead of following the evidence, and whatever comes up at the end is the answer.
Yeah, yeah.
And so kind of what you're saying, as far as you're muddying the water with your experience, which experience is good, but if you don't know to kick that aside until you do a clean investigation and then evaluate the evidence, you don't come up with your thesis.
Yeah.
I mean, follow the evidence. Conduct the investigation. Follow the evidence. Determine what happened.
You know, man, that we regularly speak, even live at shows, about the idea of blank slate. Whenever you're going in for an investigation, yes, it's one thing to get a little bit of history, background on a location, things like that. But to immerse yourself for days before you go for a 2-day investigation in stories, encounters, things like that, I don't know. I guess partially I see the fact that, yes, you may just be polishing the filter for your data, instead of polishing it for the investigation.
Yeah.
And you really do have to be careful about that, because once again, not everybody's good at compartmentalizing. Not everybody's good, and even somebody who's great at compartmentalizing may be pulling something from a past experience that they personally had and coloring the data with that.
Yeah.
So how do you prevent that? A, as an investigator, period. B, as a paranormal investigator, because you've done, not that you haven't done tons of field research as well, but you do a lot of hard detective work, research into the cases that you go to research before you ever step foot on property.
Yeah. So let me give you an example,
please,
real quick. I was in Hong Kong, and I wanted to go to Kowloon Island and Lantu Island, which is the last Shaolin monastery over there. And I'm interested in martial arts and stuff, so I take a hovercraft over there. Cool ride. And it's just normal over there. It's
just the chance to ride a hovercraft itself is like, all right.
Cool. Yeah. So we go over there, and it's what's funny is it's Buddhism, right? And they're all about not being famous and not worrying about money and everything. It's one of the biggest money making next to the Vatican.
Absolutely.
They got a Buddha that's bigger than this building on top. They built this giant Buddha. They were building it when I was there. It's a giant. I'm going to say this. It's the giantest Buddha in the world. Right. And so I go there. We take our tour of the monastery. And then it's like, okay, anybody who's go over here. Everybody else get back on the boat. Everybody got back on the boat but me. I stayed there 3 days. Got a sponsor, a monk that was my sponsor that spoke pretty good English.
Cool.
And I had to sleep with them and work out with them. Did martial arts with them. Made cheese with them. I had to just follow him around to all of his jobs and do what he was doing. And so on my 3rd day, I was like, okay, I want to go over to this pirate fort. There was a pirate fort on the other side of the island, and I wanted to go see it, kind of a famous pirate fort. And so I get a cab driver. We go to this village. I buy lunch and get some other this lady, she could speak kind of English, pretty good English. And she's like, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm going to go look for the ghost of the pirate fort. Well, she gave me these 3 little containers of like lentils, beans, and some rice, a little thing of wine, and some other things to bless the area when I left, so the spirits wouldn't come with me.
Yeah, wouldn't follow you.
Yeah, so this is just, we're out in the jungle. Offering. Yeah, we're pretty much out in the jungle, and this lady is like, do this, right? So get back in the cab with the guy. He takes me out there. I really thought I was going to a place where I was going to pay $2, and there was going to be like,
here's a tour of the pirate fort.
Nothing. It's just an abandoned foundation of a pirate fort. There's no walls or anything. It's just a big foundation. And there's nothing there. And you had to go through, kind of walk through, I don't know, 50 yards of woods to get to it, right? And it's one of those weird things in China where they build these giant buildings and nobody ever lives in them.
Yep.
There's a giant apartment complex across the street, huge, 5-story, crazy concrete apartment complex. Nobody's living in it. No one has ever lived in it. It was brand new then, and this would have been 1994 or something like that, 93. So weird, and I asked the guy, and he goes, "It's right down there, you know." And I get out, and he goes, "No, just through the woods." And so I walk through the woods, and there's the thing, and it overlooks a cliff, and you can see where ships would come in. You could shoot at the ships, and it's a good spot for a fort. Well, as I walk through the woods, this little blue and green bird pops down, and he's jumping around right in front of me, just squawking and beeping and doing his chirping thing. And I'm like, wow, cool bird, all right, so where's the ghost? This bird, beep, 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 and he's jumping up in the tree and everything. And I'm like, I bet I'm near his nest, and he wants me to get away from his nest. Like in Texas, we have the kildees, and they act funny.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I'll get away from his nest. So I start walking around. Well, he's following me. He follows me for the next 2 hours or so. And he's jumping around and jumping on things, to where I could almost touch him. He's really close. And I'm taking some pictures, and I'm doing a little metal detecting, and I'm trying to figure out where there was a graveyard.
Yeah.
He's still there. I go back up there, and I'm going to do my little spell or whatever it was with this rice and stuff.
Yeah.
And the cab guy came down, and I was doing it, and he's like, no, let me do it. So he does it. We sit there and we meditate a little bit. We make this offering to the spirits, and we leave. And that's the end of my story. That's what I did.
Sure.
About 2 years later, I'm reading, the Earth Mother sends you a blue bird with a message.
Wow.
But you have to be smart enough to pay attention.
Oh.
And I wasn't smart enough to pay attention.
Greg.
And so when you go into an investigation and you're burdened with the things that you've already planned you're going to do, and you try to hammer round peg into square hole instead of going to the location and just have the experience.
Being open.
Yeah. Shut up, turn your phone off, and live in the moment.
Yeah.
And if something comes up, then and it's appropriate to use some sort of investigative technique, go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
But to try to force it in there, I learned a huge amount just from that little experience.
Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And once again, that idea of trying to wedge something in, we talk regularly on the show about the idea of want of confirmation married with confirmation bias.
Oh, yeah.
And the dangers of that.
Oh,
I was just in a community the other day. I do RF for a living, wireless mics. I got a 6G RF reader in the room next door. I can tell you every available frequency in this localized area. And when somebody's sitting on a video on Facebook with just a plain old EMF meter that's just green to red, no actual numbers.
Right.
You can't tell me what RF is actively happening near you, what range it is, whatever. And on their lap is a computer that's on, and they're filming with a cell phone, and it goes off.
Amazing.
I'm like, did you even think about cutting the Wi-Fi in your house off, much less the Wi-Fi on the computer and your cell phone that are both within 1.5 foot proximity of this device?
Oh, yeah.
And when I mention it, I know the range of this, but you don't know what kind of RF it's reading at all. You've gotten a piece of data, but you haven't gotten a data set from your instrument.
Right.
And you need to take that into consideration and be willing to take that into consideration that
Absolutely.
You got a bump, but you don't know what kind of RF it is. It may be Wi-Fi RF. You have no idea because once again, you just uploaded this to Facebook Live, so you're obviously on Wi-Fi or a cell phone signal.
Now, a lot of these events I go to, sometimes they'll have us do ghost hunts, right?
Sure,
we'll be a celebrity.
There was one for this
hunt.
one.
Yeah. And most of the time when I do it, I bought a $12 K2 meter. It's from Japan or it's from China, and it's all just a piece of crap. It is more sensitive than any instrument I have. It's just crap.
It'll go off on anything.
It will. So I use that. What I do is, let's say I'm assigned to this section of the hospital, and other investigators, another section. So I go to my section, and I turn this little K2 meter on, and sit it down on the floor, and I just stand there. And when the people come through and they're doing their stuff, I watch that K2 meter as they're getting closer. It's like, tick, 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 and then it's red, and everybody's like, look, there's a ghost here. And I'm like, can I see your cell phone? turn it on airplane mode.
Yeah. There we go.
It goes
there
away.
we
It's
go.
like, damn it.
Yeah.
You know, never ruin a good ghost story with logic. But you
I know.
it's like,
I know, and
What are you
that's
gonna do?
just it.
What
Like
are you gonna do?
I don't like dashing dreams or breaking hearts,
No.
but I'm a pretty logical dude, and it's one of those. I'm about the data, because eventually all this data is gonna have to shake hands with science. It's not far down the road, Greg.
Right.
Like it's rapidly coming, and thank God for UAP. Literally.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I don't think a lot of these fields would be getting the scientific
They would not.
quandary that they're getting. You know, putting the word phenomena at the end of that landed it squarely in the backyard of science as a slap in the face of you need to get involved. Whether you like it or not, it's time to.
Yeah.
And what really hurt was seeing that first NASA panel, or the second NASA panel that happened where the head had to come on and be like, really? Are we getting threats from people online? You know what makes a scientist not want to be involved? That.
Yeah.
You know, and when you see that, when you see communities attacking science, it's like, it's going to be real hard for us to drag them into this.
Absolutely.
Because now it'll be kicking and screaming instead of saying, hey, we have an anomaly. And it's literally the job of science to figure out the
Right.
phenomena that's happening, because otherwise you have an ill-gotten data set. If you can't explain the phenomena and the experience and the experiment, then you're going to have a problem. You know, the example I normally give is if I turned in a 92% solution in chemistry out of something that should have been 100, well, where'd the other 8% go, Chris? Did it off-gas? Did it turn to solid? Like, what happened with
to
the
it?
solution that 8% of the two volumes went away? That's the phenomenon. That's the
Right.
anomaly that we have to figure out.
Yep.
But you have to be willing to say 8% of something just disappeared,
Right.
you know, and track that down from there. So, yeah, the idea of evidentiary-based, data-based investigation is what really drives me. And the
Yep.
idea of, like, the data fields that we can gather from these, if we gather them properly when they need to be gathered.
And
know.
know what we're gathering, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of investigators out there that get all kinds of gadgets, never read the instruction
That's
manual,
right.
and don't understand what the mechanics are inside of it.
Yes.
So whatever they're getting out of it, how do you correlate any of it?
Yeah,
you know? So,
yeah, and it's one of those, as somebody, once again, who deals with a lot of RF in the industry that I deal with it, I can explain a lot of these things that happen as they happen in real time.
Right.
You know, but you also have to be willing to accept the explanation of something when it comes to that. Now, how, especially when it comes to data, when it comes to investigative things. We have you for a couple more minutes. How do you get to the point of good data? How do you get to the point of being able to gather that data properly?
So I am not the person to answer that question. I hate to say that. I'm not.
That's okay.
You know, most of the investigations that any paranormal investigators do is just a couple hours.
Yeah.
And it's often very random. You get there, you have an idea, I want to do EVP work. You get there, and there's kids across the street playing basketball. And boom, 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 boom. You know, the basketball's going in. You're like, okay, well, we can't do EVP work. What are we going to do? Set some cameras up, you know, and you're near a cell tower. So you're getting a bunch of screech from the cell tower. So you're like, where's our analog camera? Let's do an analog camera, analog video. Now we've spent an hour and a half in our 4 hours that we're going to be there doing that goofy stuff and hoping that something is going to happen while we're there.
Yeah.
So I kind of sit back and watch the hobbyists work with their pieces of equipment.
Totally.
And see what's happening. But I'm when I was in SWAT many years ago, and the theory in SWAT was you get your really experienced guys up front and your least experienced guy in the back. Well, that's completely wrong.
Yeah.
You need one of your most squared away guys in the back because you have 13 guns pointed forward and only one backwards. Why are you going to put the guy that doesn't know what he's doing back there?
Yeah.
So I kind of adopt that theory that I kind of stand back behind everybody and I'm kind of watching what's going on around them.
Okay.
And I really do. I hate to say this because I want to be scientific based. I want to be they say, well, we use a scientific method. I'm like, no, you don't.
I think you're a lot more scientifically based than you give yourself credit for.
Thank you.
But
and I then try to correlate people's experience with it and kind of do a balance, which falls directly into what I don't want it to be, but it falls right into belief. What do you believe happened?
Sure.
And how did that happen?
Yeah. Well, but even as a detective, like, once again, that may be where you start, as long as you don't stick hard to what you believe happened and you let the evidence take you where it's going to take you. We've got a good investigation.
Yes.
Because, you're going to lean on your experience, your training as far as walking into the room. These are the 2 or 3 scenarios that may have possibly happened. Let's start gathering data now and let it lead us where it's supposed to lead us.
I know this is going to be a little hard on the.
It's okay.
I'm going to show you a picture on my cell phone. I'm going to set it up real quick. Show you a picture on my cell phone. We're driving through Ireland. We were going close to a place called Lep Castle, which is very notorious for being haunted.
Okay.
It's supposed to have about 13 ghosts, 12 ghosts, and an elemental, like this little stinky sulfur-smelling demon that crawls around. All right. And it's got great history. It's got really good, solid, real history of the horrible things that happened there.
Okay.
Right? So the Bloody Chapel is where one brother killed another brother on the altar.
Wow.
When the Darbys bought this place in the late 1800s, early 1900s, they did a renovation in part of the Bloody Chapel. They pulled 30-something bodies out of the wall of this Catholic chapel, right? On the top of this keep.
Wow.
And so, and there's good written history about this happening within the clan. So we go up, me and a bunch of other people, we're in there, and everybody gets different areas. And I was like, I want the chapel. And I bring a camera, some camera folks up there, and we set up analog everything up there, right? We didn't run any digital anything. And man, we were up there for 6 hours. We did a couple of little experiments with some boxes, spirit boxes, stuff like that, just to see what would happen. And dude, just like most ghost hunting, absolutely nothing happened. Boring out of your mind. We wrap up and we're like, all right, so I'm looking for this priest, right? For the 6 hours, and there's no hide nor hair. There's some pictures of me with 1,000 orbs around me, but it's also one of the dustiest places on the planet.
Yeah.
And those pictures were taken with somebody's cell phone, so those are all digital artifacts that popped in there. So anyway, kind of disappointed, but wow, what an amazing place. Everybody, if you go to Ireland, you need to go to Lep Castle. You can walk up and just knock on the door, and they'll let you in, right? Yeah. So Sean and Ann own the place. We go down, wrap up all our stuff. We go downstairs. We talk to Sean and Ann. He's a musician. He tells us some stories, plays us some music. We go outside. We take a selfie with the family, and then we're walking across the yard. Turn around. One of our friends are there. We're taking pictures. In one of the pictures she takes, we take all our pictures, and then we leave. 2 weeks later, we take a look at the pictures. This picture right here is Sean and Ann in front of the door at Lep Castle.
Wow. Whoa. Whoa.
So what are the rules here, man? I'm looking for a priest. What does that look like?
That looks like a friar.
Yes.
That looks like a friar in an orange or in a brown cassock.
So, we're talking data sets. We're talking evidence. We're talking this. We're talking that. I don't know what the frickin' rules are outside of physics.
Show that to the camera real quick.
Okay. I don't know what the rules are outside.
Bring it right up here.
It'll
focus on it. There you go. But that is wild, Greg. Oh, yeah. Absolutely awesome, man.
Yeah. So it's 2 events like this a year that I experience where I'm trying to be a scientist. I have a bachelor's of applied arts and sciences.
Sure.
So I think I have a good working knowledge of how to gather evidence without contamination.
Yeah.
And even if it is contamination, to be able to evaluate, what's the important thing. But it's this other experiential thing like this. It's like, Okay, that's not direct evidence. That's tertiary evidence, because you look at it and you go, okay, well, anybody looks at this, they go, well, even though there's 1,000 different occupations, and you were only looking for one, which is a priest, and just so happens the image looks like a priest, what are the odds on that? And then they would automatically go back to, well, this is pareidolia, this is some sort of reflection off the glass to make it look like that. Okay, so it is. How the hell did it look just like a priest? Why didn't it look like a fireman or a cop or something?
And in that moment.
Yes.
In that moment. Yeah.
So it's the miraculous flash that happens. And you go, what was that? And it's gone forever into the hole in the sky.
Yeah.
And you can't get it back. And there is no repeatability. So when people say, I want to, we do the scientific method, it's like, okay, when's the last time you had repeatability to a ghost?
And, that's one of the things that I say, not only in the Acorn groups with Curse of Oak Island, but with the portal groups when it comes to Skinwalker Ranch, because they get they're never going to find that treasure. It's like, well, the treasure that they found is the history that they're changing of the island. That's the treasure.
That's the treasure.
And when it comes to, Skinwalker Ranch, everybody's always like, they're just going to launch another rocket. It's like, you mean they're going to do the repeatable science? Can we please make science sexy again?
Right.
Because that's actual science. Whenever they launch a rocket, they get a result. So they're going to keep launching rockets.
Thank God for Travis, just pushing that stuff, both him and Brad.
Because there are some things where it's like, I know it's annoying to you, but that is the repeatable science that is actually a metric that they can gather.
Yes.
That there's a reaction or not a reaction. Because sometimes there's a reaction.
And that's the thing about the paranormal, right? Because it's like, all right, well, this all costs money. Time is money.
Every bit of it.
And so,
every bit of it.
To sit there and go, well, I only have 4 hours. And I was like, well, try to figure out more time. So it's almost like a lot of paranormal investigators look more at investigation like they're getting their passport stamped. I've been to Waverly.
I've been here.
I've been to, Lizzie Borden. I've been to this. I've been to that.
Almost like merit badges.
Yes, dude. I think we just came up with something.
I think we did. We need to talk a lot more frequently, brother.
You can invest and have all your badges and everything. But it's like that, instead of I'll do 2, maybe 3 investigations a year. That's it.
Yeah.
But I'm there for a long time, or I go back there multiple times.
Yeah, to get repeatable data, or try the same experiment again, see if something happens. Things like that. Because once again, it's that repeatability that makes it science. Yeah. That's where we get there. And I want to thank you for your time. We've kept you over time, Greg.
My pleasure.
It's my fault for not reaching out to you sooner and more often, because I love our conversations whenever we do have them. I need to have you on again and again, especially now that you are retired.
Yes.
Because you're right up the road for me in Round Rock. I'm right there in Cedar Park. So let's definitely get together, have you on the show, in the studio, things like that. You have a couple projects that you're currently working on right now. Tell the audience a little bit about them before we let you go.
Okay. Jeff Belanger has decided to resurrect the zine.
Nice.
Right? Yeah. So things have gotten so weird with networks and TV, and there's so much manipulation in
a little bit.
So much of the information that's coming out of paranormal. So Jeff, being the person that he is, he decided to go ahead and start doing some small magazines on specific cases and what they surround them. So it's called the Shadow Zine, and you can find it at shadowzine.com.
Okay.
So I think there's 3 volumes out right now. I think mine will be the 4th or the 5th.
All right.
So I'm working on that. I'm working on a couple of books, and then upcoming, I'm keeping the summer kind of clear, and then I will be the actual MC for Phenomenon in Vernal with Skinwalker and
cool
Expedition Bigfoot and just all those guys.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to that.
You are a busy man when it comes to this world, and I'm so glad that you're retired now and you have more time to put into it, because you have more than verve and passion for the industry.
Yeah.
And it's people like you that I think will really rub off on the next generation of researchers, man. Because we need good data-driven people in all these fields, and it's people like you that I think that'll really help light that fire. let everybody know where they can go to find your work, where they can go to find your books, all kinds of stuff.
Cool,
Greg.
man. So you can go to theparanormaldetective.com. You can get my books there. I have everything updated as far as events, where I'm going. And, of course, I have an author page on Amazon, and I'm on TikTok, and I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and all that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thank you, my friend.
Absolutely. While you were online checking out everything from Greg Lawson, everybody make sure to stop on by Curious Realm. CuriousRealm.com is where you can like, follow, subscribe. That's where you can find our store full of books, movies, films, all kinds of things from our guests. Stay tuned through this quick break. We'll be right back with our continuing coverage of the Lonestar Paracon, coming to you from Schertz, Texas, right after this, folks.
The key to good science is good research. At the heart of good research is a good data set. With the field observation and encounter log from Curious Research, you can easily keep track of your investigative information all in one place, making it easier to review cases and readily see comparisons and contrasts between them. Whether out in the woods squatching, in a back room gathering EVPs, or using high-tech gear to track UFO, UAP activity, this easy-to-carry, pocket-sized scientific data log is the perfect companion for any field researcher. You can find your copy of the Curious Research Field Observation and Encounter Log at Amazon.com or visit the official Curious Realm store at CuriousRealm.com/store to reserve your copy for yourself, your family, or a mind that you want to open. That website again is CuriousRealm.com/store.